Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My brief thought for today is inspired by Memorial Day. I call this thought, I remember. I remember watching the television as caskets of men and women serving in the military and as diplomats killed in terrorist attacks and war were carried off planes in the United States. I remember watching first responders, firefighters, and police officers rushing into the Twin Towers in New York City after terrorist attacks. I watched as the Twin Towers collapsed on many of them as they gave their lives in service for others. I remember my daughter Stephanie expressing her appreciation for the Marines who kept her safe while she served for 1 year at our United States Embassy in Afghanistan. As Stephanie's dad, I'm grateful to those Marines too. Remembering helps me to have compassion on men and women who have served and are still living with the physical and psychological injuries from conflicts and war. Remembering helps me to give thanks for all who have served and even given their life for the sake of others. Yes, it is good to remember. Thank you.
And I thank President Kathy and the board and this group for helping with that. Mike Morgan, Beth Cassidy, Joel Swanson, Jim Hannon, and I went over and presented the check. And just last week, Todd was presented with a certificate from the Veterans Association for having the best veterans program in a college in the area. It was actually a very nice surprise for him. In September, we supported the East Bay Stand Down. Now, we and other organizations around the Bay Area brought homeless veterans to the Pleasanton Fairgrounds for 3 days. They were bivouacked there, they saw doctors, they saw dentists. Paul Smythe was actually one of the dentists they saw. And we Rotarians, Valley Rotarian groups, got together and did a feed for them on Saturday. And a number of people are participating in that, including Mike Morgan, Pat Coyle, Alan Burnham, Mike Ferrucci without a guitar, Niall Runge without a camera, Jack Mills, Marcus Butner, Diane Geyer, Kathy Coyle, John Hart, Marianne Rosa, T.J. Gilmartin, Pat McMenamin, and Paul Thompson. I am very proud of this organization. I really am. And if you saw some of the veterans that went through that, a lot of them were disabled, a lot of them had some really serious problems. And it was really heartwarming to help them out even over a weekend.
They were really hungry.
And they were really hungry.
Several times.
That's right. And the brisket was wonderful. Let's see. We also supported a Cycling for Veterans fundraiser at Las Positas. We ended up standing up a way station down at the very end of Mines Road. Very, very end of Mines Road. That's an hour through winding roads down in the hills. For those that were bicycling 115 miles route. These are hardcore bicycles. Now, I got to hand it to this club because I passed around a clipboard to get some people to sign up to help out. And before the clipboard got halfway around the room, we had people signed up, and I got to thank Joel and Ross and Sonia and Bob Cowan and Bill Nebo for ability to go all the way down to the end of Mines Road and help out with that way station. Did I tell you how proud I am of this club? I really am. We also supplied a mini grant to Las Positas to bring in a national memorial, the Remembering the Fallen Memorial. Here's a couple of old veterans that kind of hung around for a while, got their picture taken. This is very a touching display showing veterans that had died over in Iraq and Afghanistan, a little bit about their personal history, a photograph of them in uniform, either formal or not, and a personal photograph. Very, very touching. There are some other events that we as Rotary didn't participate in that were held by Las Positas and their Veterans First program. There was a Veterans Day celebration. Mike Stiles and I ended up going over there and seeing that. A helicopter came in and sprayed us with sand. There was an award ceremony for the Cycling for Vets where they awarded this club $800 for putting up this way station. And I got it handed to this club because we just handed it right back to them and said, you need it more than we do. Thank you very much. I'm very proud of this. On March 7th, we had an event to honor women veterans, and there was a wonderful little gathering and a panel of veterans from each of the services. They did just a remarkable job. And then there was an annual scholarship awards that included not just scholarships for veterans that were students, but others as well. Lynn Seplow was there, and I think, let's see, who else? One or two other people are here, I'm sure. Let's see, I think that might be it on the view graphs.
Yes.
Now, there is a new, there's an event coming up on July 18th. They've got a Operation Gateway, where they're bringing in the veterans that are starting school again, right out of the service, and they're kind of indoctrinating them on how to live as civilians, live independently, take responsibility for their lives and all that. And so they're looking for a donation to be able to put that up, some $500 or so. There's also other needs they've got. They could use scholarships, they can use mentors, they can use internships, particularly internships in the business community. The laboratory, Lawrence Livermore Laboratory does a very good job of bringing internships for people who want to be technicians. And so those kinds of things we ought to give some thought to. Now, I know the Morning Club is paying attention to the RAVE program, Veterans Program. They've identified Beth McCormick, an old colleague of mine, to be their point of contact. And we've discussed coordinating with them as well. And so we ought to be able to do some other things this coming year.
And what do you think of the club?
Pardon me?
What do you think of the club?
Of the Morning Club?
No, our club. Our club is pretty good.
We're doing okay. We're doing okay.
Doing better. One more thing.
I do. Hank had a question.
Yeah, how many vets are there? How many veterans are there at Las Positas?
If I remember right, the number was like 40, 50.
And
It was a good number.
And on scholarship?
I think it's more like 300.
Yeah.
I'm
There are
sure
about
I'm sure it
300.
could be higher than that, yeah. On scholarships, I just don't know. I don't know. We did, now I am also, in full disclosure, I'm also part of the Valley Veterans Foundation, and we give scholarships to the veterans at Las Positas as well. And so there's probably on the order of 15 or so scholarships that are awarded.
342, I believe.
Well, out of the Valley Veterans Foundation, it's on the order of 15 or so.
Did you have something else?
I do have a short
He said
story.
he had a story, so are you ready for the story?
Yeah, I've gotten to know some of these veterans over there pretty well, and I'm getting a good characterization of the different cultures from the different branches of the military. I was sitting down with some of them, and I thought I'd ask a question and see what kind of response I got. So I asked this Army veteran, this soldier, what would you do if you saw a scorpion in your tent? And he said, oh, I'd just take my boot and I'd whack it, kill it. Okay. So I asked this Navy veteran, sailor, what would you do? He says, oh, I just pound it with my bare foot. He had to one up the soldier, right? So I asked the Marine next to me, what would you do if you found a scorpion in your tent? He said, I'd pick it up, rip its tail off, and eat it. Okay, they've got this reputation for being crazy, right? And they're really good at it. Then I asked this airman, this Air Force veteran, what would you do if you had found a scorpion in your tent? He says, well, I'd call the front desk and find out where there's a tent in my room. Now, I'm ex-Air Force, so it's a little too...
When you mention scorpions, that happens to be Pat Coyle's sign, and I can tell you that scorpions really like him because they have stung him at least twice. So.
Story, since you guys are talking about military stuff. About 15 years ago, I used to ride with these guys that were Vietnam vets. They had Harleys. And so we'd ride and go on these rides. in January is the first big event in this area. There's a big motorcycle show out in Sacramento. So a few of us rode out there, and I was palling around with this one guy, Vietnam veteran guy. He's kind of a tall guy, quirky guy, he's funny. And we're walking around looking at the bikes. Well, there is a motorcycle club, and their patches, the Marines. And they're all ex-Marines, and these are some big burly guys, and there's a group of them, there's like 6 of them come walking our way. Well, the guy I was with was Army. And we're sitting there looking at this bike, and he turns around and looks at the Marines, and he said, "Hey, you know why the Navy likes the Marines on the ship?" And I'm thinking, oh gosh, please. All those Marines turn around and were staring at him, and one guy goes, "Why?" And the Army guy says, "So they'd have someone to dance with." I went, we're about to get beat up here. And then the main guy that was talking, he just got a smile on his face and he started chuckling, and pretty soon they were all laughing. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was gonna get the brunt of that one. But anyways, so we do have a hotel update from there. Yeah. So starting next week, we pounded our fists. We want champagne and wine with the meal. Not really. Anyway, so it was renegotiated. Now we've held this thing down as long as we could. It is going to go up. They wanted to go higher. So we have negotiated it to $3 across the board. It's going to be $23 for lunch and $8 for non-eaters. The club is going to start paying already, but we're holding it off from the membership until the 1st of July, the first meeting in July. So expect that to be coming. It was kind of like the best deal we could get. So
It goes through Jay's year.
yeah, it'll go through Jay's ear. So we have held it down at $20 for probably like 4 years now. So, or maybe even longer. So it was time to go up. Question?
Well, that's pretty good. When SIRS meets here in this very room, they charge $25.
Yes, we know that, and we
Don't tell
agreed not to
Susan.
tell them. So we won't say anything. So we'll keep. We got the best deal that we could, and that is a good deal. So.
I do that or you did that? You did that. Well, you're not on yet. You're gonna play standing up? I'm talking into this mic.
Look at the camera. Look at the camera.
Look at the camera. Hi.
Now we have a picture with short hair.
You have chairs like that?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I just want to make one mention to Pastor Ken about remembering, because that's what this whole weekend has been about, and it brought me back into what I could remember, and then everything else is on paper or on the internet, and just making the comment recently that veterans from World War I don't exist. And so the only way we can get that information is believe it, understand it, and speculate and look at photographs and understand that it was a lot more horrible than we had knowledge of it. So anyway, I don't mean to bring you down, but I need to find my script. I'm not going to use my script, but it'll help a little bit. I have to tell you a little bit about why I'm doing this and how it happened. I was discussing that I bought an estate from either the Heritage Society notified me or the Symphony Guild or somebody notified me that there was a piano and a whole bunch of sheet music, a whole bunch of piano rolls and different genres of the music. So I went to the house and went through all this stuff, and I purchased all this stuff and put it in my basement, and every once in a while I'd pull out something that was relative to current events, because history does repeat itself. And there are just tons of interesting music, different countries. So I'm moving right along here. And I want to say thank you before I forget to say thank you to Clark for bringing him music and having him study it at home on a beautiful 7'4" Bosendorf piano.
Yeah.
And then also spending a couple hours, at least 3 hours with Alan, the train man, and F equals MA and everything else. It's been a wonderful experience that I will remember. And I've never done this before. I've never used the computer. I've always had people to do it for me. And that's a good feeling too. But I don't know how to use, what's the program? Keynote and PowerPoint and all that stuff. So this is my first, and you guys are going to see it. All right, so I'm going to go like that and say over there. Where's over there? Do you know where over there was in 1917, I think?
France.
France, okay. So then they got together and they did this. They lined up and said, we're going. A lot of them didn't know where they were going. But they were excited because
Johnny, get your gun, get your
Got
gun,
to play
get
with
your
guns.
gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on
Watch
the
it with
run. Hear them calling you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, no delay, so play. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. Tell your sweetheart not to mind, to be proud her boy's in line. Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums coming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word,
They went to Broadway after this.
beware. We'll be over, we're
And of course, there was gas, and there are people in this room whose grandparents got gas. And it wasn't just Americans, it was Canadians, and of course the British, and Russians, and the Germans. Well, thank you, Alan, for this. It's wonderful. And of course, those, the fleets of ships that went over there, because that was the only way that the people could get over there was on a ship. And so they didn't have radios in 1917, or if they did, they weren't the radios that you'd sit home and listen to. They did have Victrolas, so they had recordings. And we're going to go through a couple of, what is this? They're ready to live on the front line. That's what they did. They lived there in trenches. So where's my button? I'll press this button. It's magic. Anybody remember Mr. Zip, Zip, Zip? See, I didn't remember it either until I realized that it was the most popular song in 1917. The Thunk It. So do we know that song?
Yeah, we got it.
Do we have any dancers?
No, I'm not going to dance. Just don't dance. Let Mr. Zip Zip
Mr.
busy
Zip, Zip,
playing
Zip.
their instruments.
See, what I'm doing is I'm teaching you guys so that you go home and you Google this, on YouTube, and you can see these singers. They're here, these singers of 1917. But here are the words.
Okay.
I only did this from Good Morning.
Well, that sounds like a personal problem. Yeah, it goes like this. Do it again. Good morning, Mr. Zip,
Let
Zip,
me
Zip.
play it once because it's tricky.
Anybody remember Fatimas? I don't know what a Fatima is.
Turkish.
Oh, you go, Clark. Yeah. Let's hear it for Clark Streeter. So,
Needs to go back.
we're only doing the front part. Okay. He asked me before the program started, he said, do you know the order of the songs? I said, yeah, when the slide comes up.
Just from the chorus, you want to sing?
We just did. Are we going to do that again?
We did.
Look, I know how to go backwards.
Sing it. Practice, we sing. Oh, you want to do this?
You want to just do the zip, zip, zip part. Because that's when I couldn't sleep. Zip, zip. With your hair just short
Good morning, Mr. Zip, Zip, Zip. You're surely looking fine.
I ashes, ashes, and dust to dust. If you can don't get you fabulous well. Good morning, Mr. Zip, 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 with your haircut just as fine. Nobody even noticed I got a haircut. And I look pretty good. Yeah? Well, meet everybody. Okay. So then I said, okay, well, I need more slides. And then there was this slide, and then I had this is all music that I have in my possession too. So I think I brought this piece over to Clark, yeah. And that music is 100 years old. That paper is 100 years old. So that's music I didn't use, but I've got boxes of it. So well, let's see if we can sing this one. I'll come up. This is a harder song. Think so? How about, is there a chorus?
Yeah. Goodbye, Broadway. Hello, friends.
Okay. 1, 2. You know what to do. Goodbye, sweetheart. Slides and mountains. It won't take us long. Don't you worry while we're there. Goodbye, Broadway. Hello, France. We're going to swear you. Oh, did we pass the audition? Well, I didn't know anything about this before I,
You notice there's a pattern in the music though.
Well, it's very ragtime stuff, and 100 years ago they didn't have the radio, and so they had controls. So, but they did have dance halls, and they were called dance halls.
Yeah.
Music halls. They're called music halls, and and I didn't know much about it, and but then I learned about Britain and France and Ireland and the triple entente. Entente? Okay, well, the Germany aligned itself with Austria, Russia, known as the Central Powers, the assassination. When did it start? When did World War II start?
1914.
See, you guys are smarter than me. I was a botanist, okay? World War I. But the music hall, I didn't even know what a music hall was, but I've seen them. They're big, giant places for performing, and they'll hold 2,000 people or 3,000 people. And the majority of people could not afford a gramophone. So the only way they would get music would be sheet music, which was kind of like buying a 45 at the time. And they'd write their name on it, and they'd write the date on it, and they'd trade them and so on. But there were millions of copies out there. So even that it's original 100-year-old paper, it's not very valuable, because they made millions and millions and millions of them. Okay, do you want to go to the next slide? We did this one. Well, I just wrote that myself, laying down their lives, because that's what they did. They laid down in the middle of nowhere, essentially. That didn't look like Kansas. Maybe that does look a little like Kansas.
Like France to me.
But what's staggering is how many people died during this time. And I did not know. I'm embarrassed. I just didn't realize that, we're talking 40 million people that have perished. And then there's the 40, million people and their sisters or brothers or mothers, and it's just mind-boggling. And it just seemed appropriate that on Memorial Day I was reading all this stuff. I don't know where I'm going. Okay, there were a lot of songs like this that they really didn't know where they were going. They didn't know what horrors they were going to see. They had no idea what they were going to be doing. They trained, of course, stateside for the Americans, but all the other allies, a lot of them didn't know what they were getting into, except that they were prepared as best they could be. And so I don't have any music for this. I just want you to see the lyrics and talk about it. Now this song, I've heard it many times coming here and having people say that, like here, make the suggestion, play that song and play it. It's a long, long way to Tipperary. Well, I never learned it, but reading about World War I, of course, I learned a little bit about it. And is it from Ireland or from Scotland?
Actually, a Boer War song.
Scottish? Okay. Well,
That's Irish?
I did.
yeah, he's wearing a skirt. So, but the point is that they were lonely, and they wanted to have dreams. They would dream a lot about home and their girlfriends and their wives and the things they loved and cherished. And of course, they loved Tipperary, and I can see why. Because if I press the button, do you know the song?
I got it.
You do? Hey, Clark's got it. Okay, whip it out.
Okay. Oh, it's Irish.
Just the chorus.
Just the chorus.
Okay, just the chorus.
It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know.
Yeah.
Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart was right there.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking that, let's call it farewell to, what square is that? Leicester Square and then Piccadilly, those are both in London. That's what I was telling you, that here's the singing, Scotland singing about going back to Tipperary, but he's really like, just want to
Read
leave.
up at the top, up to mighty London came an Irishman.
Okay, well, they all look alike to me.
Let's see, that's,
I would miss that, so, and, you know, in a way. Okay, well, Bring Me Back to Belgian Baby was kind of a, I showed it to Clark and Clark said, that's a sad song. But that it's about a little girl who sees her dad, you know, all dressed up, ready to go to war. And so she's very serious about, if you see a Belgian baby over there, a baby that looks like me, that has a, you know, his mother's died, his father died, brother's sister, and you can bring me back a Belgian baby. I thought that was kind of,
It said Sherman Clay on the bottom. Oh, did it?
Yeah.
and
But we thought, but
it's just, it
oh,
makes me think that they were so desperate to have siblings to play with. And what better than a Belgian baby? Now this song, Pack Up Your Sorrows, I've heard that part.
Pack up your troubles.
So look, we've got a bunch of people that know this song. I did, you remember World War I vet, yeah? So let's see, let's make this happen. You know the song?
Yes. I think you have the text on the slide. Next slide.
Smile, smile, smile.
Oh, we're doing the chorus. Okay. Okay. One more page. Okay. There we go. Oh, look, it's missing. We'll have to ad lib.
Smile, smile, smile. Why you just prefer to like your friend?
next page.
Well, I'm really happy that you guys know this song, but I learned two things when reading this. And one was a Lucifer, and the other one is to light your fag. And I know that a Lucifer, I mean, it just made sense that a Lucifer was a combustible, you know, it was a match. If you had lucifers in your pocket, you had matches in your pocket. And fags were cigarettes. And I don't know where they got that from. But that's what it is. And I've heard that before in like the 60s that it was called fag. But anyway, so that's what I learned at
Before
this
the
point.
meaning changed to
And how I hate to get up in the morning and as we get older, I don't know.
Irving Berlin wrote that.
I know, and he was around back in 100 years ago too, which surprised me. But you know this song, don't you?
Sung by Eddie
Thought you
Cantor.
did? Well, I think it wouldn't be allowed today.
It's a really good right here.
Well, you can read it. I can read it to you.
Al Jolson? No, wasn't.
Eddie Cantor.
Yeah.
Sang it on the record of my dad's that I broke.
Okay, then here you go for it.
Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed. For the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugle call. You've gotta get up, you've gotta get up, you've gotta get up this morning. Someday I'm going to murder the bugler. Someday they're going to find him dead. I'll empty his reveille and step upon it happily and spend the rest of my life in bed.
See, I did not know this stuff existed.
I think there's a YouTube of Irving Berlin singing that song.
Saying that, my goodness. Okay, well, the Wee Wee Marie, these soldiers obviously were in France. And, what does it say? Will you do this for me? And so I don't think I have the, I didn't include it there. But there's a lot of songs about these soldiers, sailors, whatever, service people. And, they're all over France, and like wee wah wah, and I've got some more with some words, but but they were all named Marie, and then I think his name is Johnny. It's Johnny. Oh no, this one. Okay, he's Willie. Met a sweet young girl in France. Her naughty little glance put Willie in a trance. Willie Earl couldn't understand her talk. You see, he only knew 2 words in French that he learned in the trench. They were ooh la la and wee wee. And that's all you needed. And, going through all this stuff, I realized that, war kind of, it's a spectrum there. And on one side, it's the John Bolton's, or, I don't mean to get political, it's just character. And then on the left, you have the Abby Hoffmans or whatever, but it's like all over. But the mothers, I think, really have, they have something to say when their sons are pulled away, whether it's for a draft or if it's, they enlist, they feel the same. They're going to lose. If they lose, it's going to be a really big loss. So this kind of touched my heart.
It says 1915 on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is right in the middle of it. Yeah.
Wow.
There was a whole lot of propaganda stating how nice it was. It's like it didn't hurt, and it was okay. It was what we do, but it's so hard to get messages back and forth from the European theater and then bringing it back to America. But there were women. It's kind of unfortunate that she couldn't go to her music couldn't be played at a music hall because of the patriotic atmosphere there. So they were kind of restricted to play anti-war songs in Greenwich Village, I guess, or San Francisco. Let's go back this way here. I did this myself. Okay, now the girl in room 13. I like this song, not because of her lipstick or anything, but it was interesting that they would put it into words. And I don't know if you can read that, but yeah. Okay, it's really about this girl who's all decked out in this hotel or boarding house in France. And everybody wonders where she gets her money. It's like she's wearing mink and pearls and diamonds, and she has limousines pick her up, and she's ready to move, but the landlord starts paying her. So that's what the story is about. And why do I like it? I don't know. Goodbye, wild women, goodbye. So, and I'm just showing a bunch of slides of why, what we would write about. We would write about love and about affection and about prostitution. Okay, and well, I have a lot of music and some of it slipped in, but it was just at the time of year, at that time of 19. This is like towards the end of the war. I forgot to. Yeah, and then of course, this is when we came up with the drafts. Okay, so and Black Americans, like it says, from all they joined. They eagerly joined, and but they brought with them a stigma. They brought with them a stigma that they're incompetent, and except when it comes to playing the banjo. And I found like a whole series of music that just denigrated Black Americans who went and laid down their lives the same way the other white people did. So there's a lot of that. And let me. Okay. How are we doing here, Ellen? This is just about Mighty Joe, and I'm sorry that you can't read this, but again, there's so much music on YouTube and so much history that I didn't know, and I'm sure there are some people in this room that don't know. Then, of course, when they get out of the war, they try to make alcohol illegal. They've just been breaking their, so they make alcohol illegal. And so this is kind of a hilarious song about, he's just fed up with not being able to have a drink, and he just wants a drink really bad. This is another crack up. Everybody wants to keep in my cellar. And this was, well, I'm not looking at my notes, but it's probably right after, it's 1919. So I just wrote the notes, or the music down. Okay, down in my cellar, down in my cellar. My favorite line. You can have my money, you can have my car, you can have my wife if you want to go that far. Yeah, and then Prohibition failed, it didn't work. And I think we're reliving that with the drug war. And that's had multiple issues, but Prohibition is something that I think people don't tolerate too easily.
Vote straight, Democratic.
The Salvation Army was really instrumental in giving comfort, whether it be in hospitals or makeshift hospitals, or trying to take care of people that needed emotional assistance. And so there's a lot of that. And if you notice that particular piece of music is small, and I think that's a war edition. It says war edition on top of this. That's the last song.
But it's small.
Yeah, it's small. Yeah, that compared to the other sheets that you have there, and this is the patriotic war edition.
That was even smaller.
Operate with the government and to conserve paper. There's some other music that I have where the inside it talks about eating. Don't eat meat and don't eat eat fish. It says eat fish, because don't eat meat. But that's because of the war effort, not because of any particular preference for food. And then that's an example of the scale of the sheet music. And again, here's another song about you'll find old Dixieland in France. Of course you'll find Dixieland in France because the black Americans enlisted, and they went and died side by side. I ain't got, where are you at? I do have the words to that, I think. Okay, but I don't have the music. Oh wait, there's Johnny. You know what? Johnny's in town, but tune up your piano there. Do you know who Arthur Fields is? Arthur Fields, he wrote the song we just sang, How I Hate to Get Up in the Morning, Mr. Zip Zip Zip. He also did Wee Wee Marie. And again, I'm learning so much about what happened there. Okay, you want to try it? Johnny's in town? How am I doing on the clock? Oh, you want the words?
Yeah, they will.
So picky. Okay. I like my words better. I can't make it any better than that. But if I can help.
You have the next one.
Okay, well, I will help you along.
Alright.
Okay, on your mark. Johnny's in town. Johnny?
Down.
No. Johnny Dunn. Right?
You know all these guys? No.
I'm gonna try.
Alright, Michael.
Johnny's in town. No, that's a different song.
No, it's not the chorus.
Yeah, it's a different kind of Johnny's in town to me, but you.
Need the chorus.
Did you have an next page?
There we go.
There's the chorus.
Johnny's in town.
Okay.
town.
Thank you, Clark. Very right.
Thank you, everyone.
Here's the last slide.
You my guinea pig.
So, I really appreciated the history of World War I in music. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. And Alan, thank you for putting all those slides together. I think it really added to the program to see the cover of the sheet music. I think you really have a high value collection there. So thank you very much, Michael. And would you like a bottle of wine to share with Clark? All right. There you go. All right, before you go.
Your report.
I just want to remind,
It's prohibition.
I'm going to put this away.
Are there any questions?
So, somebody has a question. Okay, Trish, quick. Wait.
I just wanted to contextualize the prostitutes in France by saying that if you look at the reason that a lot of that took place is because the Germans were occupying them and people were starving. This is how women fed their children.
That's right.
So that's number one. And number two, I will remind everybody that when the black soldiers came back here, we went into a period where the Ku Klux Klan was very active. And by 1937, I will refer you to the song Strange Fruit.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have one, I think I told you last week that when I opened the program at the district conference, I gave a little brief history of God Bless America. And I would like to do that at another time, but it was written in 2018 by Irving Berlin. 1918. Sorry. 1918, thank you for correcting me. Irving Berlin wrote it in 1918 for Kate Smith. And it was in commemoration of the armistice signed. So nobody heard it for 20 years. And I'll tell you that the rest of that later. So next week, where are we going to meet? Where are we going to meet?